Of all the projects I work on, which one is my favorite? You know, it actually varies. I really do like having projects. I like having projects that have a beginning and an end. I think the ones that are probably the most valuable to me personally are probably the week in the life projects, because those have a beginning and an end, because they cover a 7-day period that I started, you know, 1 week each year. I started doing it in 2005. And I feel like if that was the only thing I did over the last, you know, since 2005 to now, if I just documented 1 week each year, like that would be amazing. I feel like that would be the coolest thing ever. For me, because it's my job and I have all these other projects that I enjoy doing as well as that I need to do, that it keeps it interesting. But even, you know, even when I say that, like the projects that I just worked on yesterday for this new Hello Story 3 workshop are totally feel like they're some of my favorites that I've done. Felt really playful and really had a fun time working on that. And that's very different than those projects. Those individual scrapbook layouts are very different than the way that I approach Week in the Life, which tends to be really photo and word heavy. Whereas the projects that I just did were very playful, very painterly, had all kinds of different, you know, other things going on in them. And I think that what I really love is that I get to do both. I really love getting to have, you know, getting to do these projects that have beginnings and ends. And I love each one of them for different reasons. Like I love One Little Word as a very personal look at where my head and my heart is at every single year since 2011, since whenever I started first doing that. I love December Daily and continuing on with the tradition of that project, which also started like in 2007, and being able to look at our December every year since then. Like, what do we celebrate? What are the stories that are important to us? What are the traditions that have continued as our family life has changed? And what are the ones that we've let go of? Yeah, I just feel really lucky that this is what I get to do. Like, that's honestly really how I feel, because I really, really love it. Somebody asked about tips for getting out of a creative block or a slump. I actually have a whole video about that. I will link it for you below. You can also just check it out. It's a previous Craft the Story video. I thought this one was really interesting too. So, advice for those who used to scrapbook a lot, but stopped and now are having a hard time getting their groove. So, welcome back. If you are returning to scrapbooking after a hiatus, there's lots of us that are still here, that are continuing on, and you are welcome back here in whatever method and way that you want to do it now. Depending on when you walked away, things may look a little bit different now than they did previously. There's just so many different ways that you can approach it. I love seeing that, you know, some people are still doing traditional projects in a variety of sizes. And when I say traditional projects, I mean like, here is a piece of cardstock and I'm going to build a scrapbook layout on top of it, right? Like that's one method. Another method that is available are pocket pages, which are super great for organization. They are great for not having to come up with a design foundation, right? It's already specified there for you, and you're simply, you know, printing out your photos, you're writing things on journaling cards, you're sticking them in the pockets, and you can take it way farther than that too if you want to, but that's an option. Another way that lots of people are approaching it these days are doing notebooks. That's how I did Pieces of Me this time. I've done some travel that way. I did an Art of Noticing project like that, working inside of a notebook, which is very different from, you know, what we were doing when I first started scrapbooking back in 2002 and 2003. So I think my biggest advice if you are coming back is to encourage you to reconnect with what did you love about this originally. You know, did you love the storytelling? Did you love the photography? Did you love the products? Did you love the creativity? Like, which of those pieces was the most important to you? And try again. Like, do you still want to do traditional stuff? Do you want to do things maybe that are, you know, not as much starting with a blank page? I'd also suggest just jumping into one of these projects like Day in the Life or Week in the Life, considering one of those things as a way to get you started. Week in the Life, I feel like, is such a valuable project for anybody to embark on. It's just such a great way to take a picture, the 7-day window of what's happening in your life right now. It's just a really special project. Do I ever look back at an old project and not like how it turned out, and how do I deal with that? I definitely have times where I look back at stuff and I'm like, why did I do that? Or why did I make that decision? Or why did I use that color? Or that's, you know, whatever. Like I of course I have different thoughts like that. But I really, and I think this is partly because I am, you know, because of my overall approach, which is finding joy or gathering joy through the process of telling all of these stories, right? Like that's where it's so much more the process than it is the end result. So when I look back at projects that I've done in the past where I'm like, I don't love that one that much, I try to really take it more as an opportunity to learn something about myself than I do like, that sucked or whatever. Like I don't spend very much time thinking about that. I know that there have been many times where I've gone back and I've looked at some of the scrapbooks that I made in the very beginning, and you know, they lacked the amount of words that many of the projects I do today include. And that definitely, seeing that and wishing that I had more words in the past informed the choices that I made going forward. So that's part of the reason why I include more words overall in all of the totality of my projects, is because that's what I felt like was missing when I went back and looked at them earlier on. I think also I don't have a lot of time to worry about whether or not I like something that I did previously. Like for me, there's a lot of forward movement in my storytelling, and so for me, it always becomes an opportunity to do something different the next time. Yeah, I honestly think getting curious about our own processes and why we like things or don't like things is really valuable information as we go forward with our creative projects. You know, being able to look back and go, okay, what did I actually, you know, if my initial sense is I don't like this, or I didn't, you know, I don't feel good about this project, my question would be like, why? You know, what's the reason why, and what can I do different the next time I embark on that project? Was it the color scheme? Was it the photos I took or didn't take? Or was it the words that I wrote or the words that I didn't write, right? Like everybody's gonna have their own response to that. All right, somebody said, my creative ebb and flow is stuck hard on ebb. How can I kickstart it again? That's such a good question. You know, for me, when I am really struggling with creativity or struggling with idea generation or storytelling ideas or whatever, I honestly, if at all possible, I will step away. Like I will go do something completely different. You know, this kind of depends on like, is this a 1 hour thing? Is this a day thing? Is this you know, has it been a week? Has it been a month? Like, I think for me, I honestly don't have that many opportunities to live in an ebbing space, only because I have deadlines and so much work that has to get done. And I think that over the years of that, I have practiced over and over again coming back. And so for me, I don't have the luxury of ebbing for a really long time. It's usually like, okay, I'm in the middle of a project, I am not feeling this, I need to walk away. I will go outside, I will take a walk, I will take a shower, I will do something, you know, I'll just even go walk around the yard, do something different, get a glass of water, have a drink, do something, or go to bed and then wake up the next day and come back to it with a little bit of a fresh perspective. That honestly is how I deal with that around here right now. But from a from a longer term standpoint, you know, when there have been times in my life where I just have not felt creative, or, you know, creative in quotations too. I think for me, what I've done is I have focused on different aspects of memory keeping. So if I'm not feeling it in the design sense, I will focus on the pictures. If I'm not feeling the photography, I will have my focus be on the words. Like, what are some other ways that I can work with the words? You know, or if it's the words aren't coming, then I will, maybe I just said this, maybe, you know, I'll focus on the photos and the photography and how can I challenge myself in that way? Because what I know to be true is that as I ride those waves and I focus on something else for a while, I will learn some things through that process that will then help me when I come back to, you know, working on a more complete project. Somebody asked me a question I thought was really interesting, which was, I talk about storytelling rather than scrapbooking, and they wanted to know, like, when did I make that change, and is that intentional? I talk about scrapbooking, memory keeping, storytelling fairly interchangeably. So I use all of those at different points in time, sometimes for different reasons, but sometimes just because I don't necessarily differentiate them. Sometimes I do and sometimes I don't. I like the term storytelling because it isn't just scrapbooking. So scrapbooking is awesome, obviously, like I'm here for that. But there are many, many, many people in the world who are like, no, I'm not gonna do scrapbooking. Like, scrapbooking is dumb. Scrapbooking is, you know, they have a very specific picture of what that looks like. And obviously those of us that are here know that, you know, there's probably some truth to that, but it's also not the whole truth. And so for me, I often talk about storytelling because it reaches a different audience of people. When we talk about storytelling, you can be someone that tells stories without being a scrapbooker, right? You can tell stories through your photography. You can tell stories through your words. As scrapbookers, we choose to bring those two things together, to tell our stories. That's the way that we approach it. But I like using the term storyteller because I think that we are all storytellers. We all tell stories. It is human nature to tell stories, and we all have stories that we have lived. And so I like that as a more universal term rather than scrapbooking or memory keeping. So yeah, that's the reason why I often say that word. Favorite story kit theme? We've done like 70 some story kits now, and I honestly don't know that I have a favorite. There are lots of them that I have loved at different points in time for different reasons. And to be honest, what I really love is just having a focal point each month. I love when I get the kit and I open it up and I say, okay, this month I'm telling stories about being strong. That's the one that's coming up. You know, so what are the stories that I can tell about my own life right now, about strength, or, you know, past chapters in my life, stories of strength. Like, it's gonna be, I'm super excited about this particular topic coming up. So it's almost like whatever one I'm doing is my favorite one. I really liked the one that was design. I thought the products that we did for that one were really fun. Yeah, honestly, you know, we've done so many. They all feel like they're a part of me, and they're all just kind of like, they all have served a purpose in moving me forward in my own storytelling adventures. All right, somebody asked, they wanted to know, they said, as more contributors are coming in, so more contributors from our creative team or other people that are teaching classes, am I stepping away from the business? Good question. I'm absolutely not stepping away. I'm actually probably doing more work, just in different ways, and it might look a little bit different to those of you guys that are on the other side of the computer or on the other side of your phone there. In the last couple of years, we've made some really conscious decisions to include other people, include the creative team more, include contributors. Like, we have contributors to One Little Word this year, which I can tell you has been the most amazing experience for me. You know, I've been doing this since, I think 2005 is when I actually started generating an income, probably 2004, 2005, generating an income from scrapbooking, and have, you know, had a variety of different income sources related to that over the years. And as the business has grown and as time has gone by, we have reached a point where I simply can't do everything. Like there's not enough of me, there's not enough hours in the day. And there are also so many other awesome voices in memory keeping that I would like to lift up. And I think that that's a big piece of it for me, because in the lifting up of those other voices and letting other people, you know, share what weekend life means to them, or what, you know, leading a prompt in one little word, like I feel like our entire community benefits from hearing different perspectives and different people talking about how they embark on these different memory keeping projects that I've done for so many years. I also think that for me, you know, some of the things that it's done is it's allowed me to focus on content creation, which continues to be the piece that I like the most. You know, creating classes, creating projects, keeping up with the flow of all of that. I do a lot of that. I'm also doing the design work here for the kits and the you know, the story kits and the projects that we have. With Inked, our partner company, I still do, I don't know if it's the majority, but it's a lot of the design work. I'm still kind of the lead on the design work, and then they have other graphic designers and production people that can do some of the products that we're offering. Definitely not stepping away from the business as a whole. Honestly, I would say that we are growing, and I know for some people that it always looks weird when somebody decides to do something a little bit different than what they've done in the past. For me, that big change was stepping back from Facebook and leading our Facebook groups. That change for me has been, it's been a monumental shift in the way that I approach my work. And it was something that I think that I really needed, even if I didn't know that I needed it. And even if it felt like I wasn't sure if I was doing the right thing. The community part of our company and part of just memory keeping in general, the community part has always been really important to me. But it had just gotten to where it was taking up so much real estate in my head that I didn't have space for coming up with ideas, or for telling my own stories, or for, you know, navigating what does it look like if I'm not online all the time. And those are some of the big things that have really been on my mind the last couple of years. But yeah, I feel like for us, you know, hosting other instructors, you know, having other instructors teach classes, like even, I'm thinking specifically of Jenny Ray's hybrid class that she just did. Her content is phenomenal. And I'm so excited to be able to promote her and to invite other people to take classes from someone else other than me that may grow your passion, may grow your skill set, may grow your interest. That's really the direction that we're heading here right now. I don't anticipate stepping back completely in any way for who knows how long. I don't know. I have no idea. I can't even imagine not working like that just even at this point in my life. I'm 45 right now. I can't even imagine what that would look like. But yeah, we're just trucking along. That's kind of where we're at with that. All right, so next question is, have I experienced memory keeping burnout, and how do you push through since it's your job? Absolutely, and we talked a little bit about this before. Burnout is real, and no matter what you're doing, whether it's your hobby. I think we can get burned out of our hobbies, we can get burned out of our jobs, we can get burned out of people in our lives, right? There's burnout occurs in lots of different areas. You know, for me, the pushing through, I think I talked about this a little bit briefly before, you know, how I'll take a shower or I'll go do something else. I think that one of the things that I have been working on for a number of years is giving myself or creating opportunities for myself to have space to read more, to be outside more, to actually like be living a life that isn't working all of the time. And that always sounds kind of weird because people are like, oh, your job is like a hobby. And I'm like, yes, it is, but it's still a job. There's still, you know, it's running a business, and there's lots of different things that go along with that. And I've been really lucky to be able to hire some really amazing people who support me and who do some of the other things that I'm not as good at, so that I can focus on the things that I am good at, which is storytelling, creating content, that kind of stuff. So yes, I absolutely 100% experienced burnout. I think I pushed through partly because I know how valuable storytelling is to me. And I am a better person when I am doing it, because it is the way that I process and understand my life. So, you know, there's pushing through. I feel like I've gotten really good at taking a break when I'm taking a break. And so that, you know, can mean just complete social media break and walking away for a certain length of time and just being like, I'm gonna go away for a while and I'll probably come back. You know, being able to do something else entirely that doesn't have anything to do with my working life, that helps me with burnout. Even just going outside and having a project in the yard feels really important to me. Doing different things with the kids, you know, buying this camper van even just so that we can have some adventures. Yeah, you know, burnout I just think is super real. And for all of the years that I have worked ridiculous hours and ridiculous amount of time, like, it's taken me years and years and years to find a rhythm that feels like it is healthy. And that's kind of where I'm at right now. And I'm feeling really excited about finding that for myself. But there's lots of different factors that go into that, right? That's like hiring additional people. That is prioritizing rest. That is, you know, kind of understanding that it's okay for me to leave the office at 3 or 4 or 5 in the afternoon, because tomorrow there's going to be more projects to do. And then I'm never going to be done, right? I'm never going to be done telling stories. I'm never going to be done with more projects to come. And kind of like lessening the intensity of some of that, I think, has been really helpful for me, if that makes sense, and related to burnout, of kind of becoming more comfortable with a working flow that is a little more sustainable. And we could talk more about that, Jen, if you want to talk more about that. Somebody asked too, just a question about, you know, how this business started, and I think I'll do a separate video for that. I'm just making a note to myself. I'll do a separate video on me just telling the story to the camera of kind of how this whole thing has evolved. All right, somebody asked too another question kind of about unfinished projects. And I'm gonna, like I said, I'll do another video on that, but how do you talk to yourself about unfinished projects? And to be honest, I don't have a lot of unfinished projects, and I think part of that is just because of the way that I work, in terms of having deadlines and my commitment to the community and my commitment to my job. But there have definitely been times, I mean, let's talk about project life, like, right, where times where I've just walked away and I'm like, you know what? I'll finish that some other time. And I feel completely comfortable with that. Like, I'm totally fine with that. Like, either I will get back to it or I might not. And even some of the projects that I have, or past mini books, if you look through my giant tub of mini books, you will see that there are a number in there that I started and I never finished. And I honestly, like, being able to look back on that, you know, however many thousands, it feels like thousands, you know, however many years later, and see that in the middle of all of my projects, some of them are unfinished. I don't care about that in the least. Like, I'm totally fine with that. That is just normal and real, I think. But yeah, I'll put that on my list to talk about in a future video, the tips for finishing. Do you feel grief over the projects you wish you could accomplish but never do? I think this is a good question, and I think that I need to answer this one related to something else other than scrapbooking, because of the fact that most of my projects get finished. But I mean, even like Project Life and the albums that I haven't completed all the way, which 2016, I don't know if, I can't remember if that's I think that there might be one other year where I didn't finish it all the way. I feel no grief. I feel no grief. I feel no guilt. I tell stories when I can tell stories. And for me, that happens to be a lot because it's my job. But I try to use that to talk to myself in other areas of my life. So let's ask myself that question about books and about the garden, and let's see what I say. So do I feel grief over the projects I wish I could accomplish but never do in the garden? Do I feel grief about them? I do not feel grief. Sometimes I just wish there were more hours in the day, or that I had you know, fewer commitments in whatever area it is at the time, so that I could be out in the yard all the time. I don't feel grief about it though. I feel like I'm doing the best I can. And I think that that's what I would hope for you guys out there. You know, whether it's unfinished books, unfinished scrapbooks, unfinished projects around your house. It's just, I can't even, can you even imagine if you finished all your projects? Like what would life look like if all of our projects in all of those areas of our lives got finished? Like I can't even imagine what would I do that I would come up with new projects to do. No, I am super nice to myself, I think, about those kinds of things. There are definitely things that I wish that I would do. You know, I wish that I did this around the house, or I wish I would finish that project. But even if like you walked out of my office right now, there's a book organizing project that I started a couple weeks ago. It's still sitting out there. It's just like I step over it every single time I come in and out of my office, which is multiple times a day, and it's still there. I don't feel grief about it. I know that eventually I will get around to cleaning that up. Eventually I will get around to some of the projects in my garden. Eventually I will get around to finishing up some of those old Project Life albums. And if I don't, it will be okay. It will be okay. How has your philosophy about storytelling evolved or changed over the years, or has it? I think that's a good question. I think that one of the things that I know now that I just probably couldn't have known when I first started, or even within the first few years, was just simply how much of an impact storytelling can make on our mental health, which has absolutely been the case for me, documenting the stories of my life over the years, during the times when I've been very mentally healthy, and other times when I haven't been as mentally healthy. Gives me a very complete picture of myself. And that is something that I would not have ever imagined would be a part of this whole process. Like I couldn't have said when I was starting scrapbooking, you know, because I had a 1-year-old, that this was going to create a monumental shift in my life, both in the way that I view myself and in the way that I view the world and the other people and all of those kinds of things. Like they're just things that I couldn't have known then, that I know now through the process of writing all of this stuff down, right? And through the process of practicing gratitude very, very regularly in my memory keeping adventures. You know, I know that there was a point in time where I definitely had that shift to focus on the words and to focus on the stories, and have that be not only a big piece of the value of my brand, but also just a big piece of the way that I approach scrapbooking is generally from a story first, a start with story standpoint. And there was a point in time where I recognized that to be the case, and since then, that's what I've been focusing on. Start with story, start with story, start with story. And start with story can look like a lot of different things, but it is prioritizing the words, and prioritizing the story, and prioritizing practicing writing. And every single time we show up to a scrapbook page and we are writing something on there, we are practicing writing. And yeah, I think that's just one of the biggest things for me. So in some ways it's evolved, and in some ways it's stayed the same. And I think that every year it gets deeper. My love for this craft, my love for stories, and how they can be so impactful and so important to us in so many different ways in our lives. With the jelly plate printing, was I using a specific kind of paper? So when I am actually doing the prints, I just do them on white cardstock. You can do it on all kinds of different surfaces. So I was doing the actual like printing, you know, where I put the paper down and pull it up, or sometimes I actually put the jelly plate down and then pull up the jelly plate. I'm just doing that on cardstock, and then I'm rolling off onto deli paper. Another question that somebody asked was related to how do you decide the size of print for my photos? And then if bulk printing, how do you pre-select the size to fit the layout? So I print all of my photos here at home. It's something that I've done for years and years now. And the main reason why I do that, or why I started doing that originally, is because it gives me the maximum amount of flexibility. I do not plan them out ahead of time generally. I like to do full page photos, so you'll often see, you know, a full page 12 by 12 photo, or a full page 6 by 8 photo, or whatever it is. I like to be able to do that, but I also like to just have the options to reprint photos or switch up the sizes as I'm actually working on the project. But I know that that is not an approach that works for everybody. If I was going to, if bulk printing was the option that I was working on, I would probably have like a setup where, you know, once a month I would order my photos, and I would probably order, you know, a bunch of them 4 by 6, and then I would pick out a few favorites that I would know that I would want to tell a story, use them to tell a story, right? Use them to illustrate a story. And I would probably print those to the full page size of the page protector. So that could be 7 by 8¼ inches. It could be 12 by 12 size. I would just print some enlargements for myself to be able to work from, because I know just from doing this for years and years that I really value having some of those larger photos in my projects. All right, and so just a few more questions here. These ones are specific to Week in the Life, which is the next project that we have coming up as a community. Somebody wanted to know, they said, what do you have planned for the Week in the Life prep day? So excited for that. So we started a couple years ago doing a prep day for both December Daily and for Week in the Life. So it's a community day where we come together. It's generally $5. It's like a 6 to 12 hour thing, kind of depends on the project and what we have going on. But we're gonna be doing that again this year. It's gonna be on Saturday, May 8th. And I think we're doing an 8-hour one. I'm like looking for my notes here. We're doing an 8-hour event, and this opens for registration on Saturday, May 1st. So depending on when you're watching this video, registration may have already started. And I'm gonna be leading the prep day this year. So I'm gonna have a couple different product play hours where I share how I was playing with some of the different products. We're gonna do a story chat. So where some of us, I think it's gonna be a recorded chat with some of our creative team members talking about Week in the Life. I'm going to do, what else am I? I'm gonna do a little bit of looking back at some of the past Week in the Life projects. So that'll be one topic. We'll be doing a Q&A. Lisa Varshine will be doing a photo hour talking about her photography tips. And then Jess Forrester is also gonna join us. So she will be in charge of an hour, and we'll be sharing some of her tips. I know this is her personal favorite project. And then I will also be showing like how I'm putting my album together. I'm pretty sure that I'm gonna video record that, and that will be available there during the prep day. And then it will also be on my blog, at least images. This is what I'm thinking is happening related to that, but more information will be about that on the blog. A couple other Week in Life questions. Do you use things that you do 2 times in a week, twice in your album? So with Week in the Life, the premise is that you're documenting 7 days in your life. And there are lots of different ways that you can approach this. You can approach it from, I am going to document every little single thing in my life that happens over the course of each of those different days. That's one way that you can approach it. You can also approach it from a more prompt-based setup, like, you know, each day you're focusing on something different that you are going to document. You know, maybe you're gonna do it hourly, or you're gonna document gratitude one day, or you're gonna focus on something else on a different day. This year, I'm gonna be using the 4 by 6 cards that I designed as the jumping off point for journaling for each of my days. There's a bunch of ING words on there, and those are gonna be the kind of the formula that I'm gonna follow this year. That's what I think, at least initially. These are my current thoughts before I get into that. So if I do something twice in a week, like let's say I drive my kids to school, you know, which would be more than twice a week, I might include that more than once. It's really up to you and the kind of story that you want to tell about your week. If you're being super literal about it and you're, you know, very much, I do this and then I do this and then I do this and I do this, then obviously you're going to include, you know, you may include something 7 times if you eat breakfast every day, right? That's something that you could do, but it doesn't have to be as specific as that if you don't want to. Lots and lots of different ways that you can approach that.